ready to spin the globe again? Here's my top 10 choices for destinations. So first up on this list at number 10 is the tiny Buddhist kingdom of Bhutan. It is a peaceful little country nestled between China and India in the Himalaya mountains. Honestly, this country would rate higher on my list if it were more affordable, more in line for pricing with the other neighboring countries. With a government-mandated minimum tourist expenditure of $250 US per person per day, it is one of the more expensive destinations in the world. With that, you get basically an all-inclusive vacation, with a tour around the country to some hotspots, with fairly basic accommodation, basic food, transportation, and a guide included, and additional tips are expected. However, if you want to upgrade any of this to nicer hotels, nicer restaurants, that is an extra cost. If you want to do a trek, as I'm sure many people would want to do, the trekking costs are entirely additional to the $250 per day each. Treks range from the 5-day Druk Path, which I did, to the month-long and very challenging Snowman Trek, considered to be one of the best treks in the world. As you can imagine, the travel costs really start to add up. Bhutan strives to restrict tourism in this way. As the world's only carbon-negative country, Bhutan wants to minimize the effects of tourism on the environment and also on its culture. You will be supervised by your guide the whole time you're in the country, which you may not be used to. If you come here, you will find marvelous scenery, safe and clean cities, friendly people, and a unique Buddhist culture. I would say that it's entirely worth a short visit to experience the spectacular one-day hike up to Tiger's Nest, this monastery perched cliffside near Peru. Next up is Argentina, a large country in South America. Start out by exploring the huge city of Buenos Aires. Take in a salsa show and enjoy some of the famous Argentinian steak with a glass of Malbec. You could visit Perito Moreno Glacier and watch sheets of ice calve off and form little icebergs. You should definitely include a visit and a trek in Glacier National Park to see the spectacular Mount Fitzroy range of mountains and sparkling blue glacial lakes. This area is called Patagonia, an area of southern South America shared with Chile, with some of the most spectacular mountain scenery in the world. While rugged and long, the treks are not at high altitudes, unlike treks in other areas of the Andes Mountains. You'll see lots of wildlife too, including the camel-like guanaco and ostrich-like ree. You could easily combine your trips with other sites in Chile and Patagonia as well. And you're already this far south, you might as well keep going to the end of the world. Located at the southern tip of the continent, visit the small city of Ushuaia, a very windy place where the weather changes every 5 minutes. You could do treks here throughout Tierra del Fuego, take a cruise on the Beagle Channel and see some sea lions. You might even see a penguin or two. You could also go down to the harbor and watch lucky people board a ship headed to Antarctica. Another of my favorite countries in South America is Brazil. This is far too big of a country to see in one visit. You could choose to spend a few weeks in the rainforest and cruising down the Amazon River, watch for wildlife and fish for piranha, explore some of the large cities like Salvador de Bahia and Sao Paulo, and get lost in the crowd. Definitely spend some time in Rio de Janeiro. I think it's the prettiest city in the world. Take the cog train up to the famous Christ statue, Cristo Redentor, and the cable car up to Sugarloaf Mountain for the best city views. Next time I have to go paragliding in Rio. Relax and work on your tan at Copacabana Beach, or you could go during Carnival for the world's biggest party. Take in a famous Brazilian barbecue or asado for an overload of meat. There are lots of other great beaches and offshore islands to explore, and some good snorkeling and diving. You could end your trip with a couple of days at the massive Iguazu Falls, but be prepared for really hot and humid days if you go to Brazil in their summer months. You do need a visa in advance of travel, and it can be a little harder to get around here, as there isn't a lot of tourism and mostly only Portuguese is spoken. Number 7 on my list is Laos, a small country in Southeast Asia, which I think is very underrated. Tourists flock to neighboring Thailand, which is very nice, but if you want to get away from the crowds, head to quieter Laos. This landlocked country has its own peaceful vibe. There are some of the most picturesque waterfalls and rivers, rice paddies, quaint towns, ancient temples, and caves to explore. All of Southeast Asia is cheap to travel, and this is no exception. You can splurge on hotels and restaurants and still be budget conscious. You could rent a vehicle and drive around on your own. The beach buggies are especially fun. The people are very friendly and helpful, despite the country's tragic war history. There are many adventure travel options, and even hot air balloons are popular. There are humane elephant centers and other nature reserves to visit, and it is also very easy to extend your trip in any of the surrounding countries. Okay, I had to throw in one relaxing beach holiday spot. The Canary Islands are part of Spain, but are located off the coast of Morocco. These islands make the perfect extension to the end of your trip to Europe or Africa. These picturesque islands have a perfect temperate climate year-round with very little rain. Each island is different, so do a little research to see what island is best for you. For instance, Gran Canaria would be a better beach vacation. Tenerife would be better for scenery and hiking. Tenerife is dominated by a huge volcano, Mount Teide, Spain's tallest peak, which you can climb, or there's a cable car. There are lots of nice resorts to choose from, and you can easily drive around the island on your own. You can see other islands on your trip via short ferry rides. This destination truly has something for everyone. Chile is a long and slender country along the west coast of South America. The capital, Santiago, is huge and vibrant, and when clear you can see the surrounding mountain range. I've already talked about Argentinian Patagonia, but Chilean Patagonia may even be more spectacular, especially in Torres del Paine National Park. If you can, do the famous W trek for some of the best Andes mountains and glacier views. There are a few places along the coast you can even see penguin colonies, colorful village towns, and great seafood. Your trip would not be complete without a few days' visit to mysterious Easter Island to see the famous stone heads, or moai. Vietnam is my favorite country in Southeast Asia, at least to date. There's a lot to see here, from the green hills and rice paddies of Sapa in the north to the Mekong Delta in the south. Large cities bustling with millions of scooters and open-air markets. Vietnam is one of the best food destinations. I could spend a month eating nothing but soups like pho and bun bo hue, with every region having their own specialties. You could take a luxurious cruise through Ha Long Bay's 1600 stone-karst islands. You'd find out more about the Vietnam War, or the American War as they call it, and despite this, they are still some of the most welcoming people. This is one of the best countries to visit, and is also one of the least expensive, where you can get some of the best street food and 50-cent beer. Peru is my favorite country in South America, with the most amazing Andes mountain treks. The most famous of this is the Inca Trail, leading to amazing Machu Picchu, but book this trek 6 months in advance. With amazing views and ruins all along the way, you won't be disappointed with the Inca Trail, but there are countless other treks to choose from, and some may even be a little more scenic. These treks are all at fairly high altitude, so you need time to acclimatize and walk slowly due to the lack of oxygen. Machu Picchu is not to be missed, whether you arrive by trek or by train. There are so many other sites here that one visit is not enough. City life in Lima and Cusco, Nazca Lines, Colqui Canyon, and the list goes on. Nepal. This has to be the best place for trekking on Earth. This is the high pass at Thoring Law at the Annapurna Circuit trek, but there's countless treks around the country to explore. Check out my Nepal series that I just posted. There's lots of other things to do too, like paragliding. This is Lakpa Sherry Sherpa. In 2011, he and a friend became the first people to paraglide off the summit of Mount Everest. No one at the time even knew whether this was possible. After landing, they then paddled a kayak all the way through Nepal, Bangladesh, and India, all the way to the Indian Ocean, which is a bit nuts, but I flew with them anyways. There are lots of other adventure activities like ziplining, caving, whitewater rafting, and of course, bungee jumping. If you can, make it to Nepal at least once in your life and see the Himalayan mountains up close. My number one destination could only be Antarctica. If you're expecting a frozen wasteland, you're in for a shock. There's life everywhere. Penguins, albatross and other birds, seals and whales, everywhere. The Atlantic coastline is teeming with life. See what the world would be like without the intervention of people. This is the only place you will ever go where you will see absolutely no trash. This will be the most expensive trip of your life and meant to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience. But if you can manage it, it's well worth the trouble. You could also look into last-minute fares from Ushuaia. If you can spend the extra time waiting, it could save you tens of thousands of dollars. There's nothing quite like having an inquisitive penguin walk up to you, kayaking among a seal colony, or having a humpback whale surface beside the Zodiac.
Wow!
And let's not forget the amazing icebergs. Well, those are my top 10 destinations to date. What are some of your favorite places? And where do you think we should go next? Let us know in the comments.